is that crafting is a great way to meet interesting, amazing, like-minded creatives. And I have met a new friend. After a few months, I am ready to share her with you. She shines with a sparkling personality and she's incredibly colorful. She's also great at bonding. And even though she wasn't much into it, I introduced her to paper crafts and it seems she loves it. So come and meet my new friend. And here she is, the colorful, sparkling Angelina. And even though she is mostly used to working with fabric, she is a stunner in paper crafting and she's an eye-catcher on any card design. So let's go over some basics. When you come across a new supply, the first thing you want is some information, some facts, hard data if you will. So you know what to do and how it's going to look. So first, what is Angelina? Angelina is a sparkling, iridescent, colorful, superfine synthetic fiber and it's heat bondable. All except for 4 colors, they are semi-heat bondable. Angelina comes in a total of 21 colors. And besides the fact that you can use the fine fibers just as they are, it looks incredibly cool once they are bonded and they can be used on all kinds of paper crafts, including mixed media and card making of course. And when I got all those yummy colors at home, I first went to browse the internet to see what I could find there. Well, it was all basically fabric, 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 so that was not very helpful. Then just do some testing. Let's start with how does the heat bonding work. That was next on the list. You need an iron. I'm one of those fortunate people who doesn't have an iron. So that got me thinking, what else has heat, makes heat, gives heat? And yes, you are a total hottie, but I was looking for another kind of heat. So I was thinking heat tool and laminator. So let's put those to the test. On my desk I have a non-stick replacement mat that can take some heat. I have a skewer and I'm taking a bit of the Angelina. I pull that apart and spread it out on the non-stick mat. And then I tuck in the loose ends. And I add the skewer on top so it stays in place while I add some heat with the heat tool. You can see that it starts to fuse pretty fast. It also changes color and the air made those fibers go over my skewer, so I'm peeling those apart again. And it's pretty hard to get the fusing even with the heat tool, and this is because the air is coming from one direction and isn't spread over all the fibers at once. If you want to tuck in those fibers to get a nice finished edge, that is super easy with the heat tool, because you can just tuck it in and then add some heat and it's bonded. And the fibers along the edge fuse together real nicely. Be careful to not burn your fingers. Just point the heat tool away from your fingers if you do it like this, or use the skewer or some other heat resistant tool. And then I add some heat all over the complete bonded piece on both sides, turning it over to fuse it even a bit more. So this is what you get with the heat tool. And here you can see the difference between the color from the package and the bonded Angelina with the heat tool. And now let's try some Angelina with the laminator. And I put that on a piece of printing paper, just a thin paper will work for this. And as Angelina only bonds to Angelina and not to paper or fabric, a piece of printing paper will work perfect to make a sandwich with the Angelina and to run it through the laminator. Then I pull the Angelina apart a bit. And I spread it out on the paper, making sure that all the fibers are on the paper and that there are no little parts peeking out. I'm not sure if it's going to hurt the laminator, but I just think it's better. And then I add another piece of printing paper. I preheated the laminator with the setting on 80 micron. And then I just add it in the laminator and then it comes out on the other side, just as I expected. I peel off the top layer and look at how beautiful it's fused together. Then I just peel it off the paper, and the good thing is that you can use them more than once to fuse your Angelina. And this gives you a really pretty, very thin film. And look at the difference from the one with the heat tool and the one I ran through the laminator. The one I fused with the heat tool is also very loose and it's way thicker than the other one. And the one that went through the laminator is a really firm film and it's a bit less soft than the heat tool fused one. Now I'm going to bond the same color that I bonded with the heat tool and see if that makes a difference. So this is how it comes out the laminator, and it looks like it's a completely different color. And I even checked that I had the right bag, that I didn't mix up those colors. But I'm going to do another little test because I'm going to cut the heat tool bonded one in half and then I'm going to run that through the laminator to see what the result that is going to be. And here you can see the difference between before and after with the heat tool one, and you can also see that there are parts of the heat tool fused one has some of the same colors as the one that I ran through the laminator. And now it's also flat. And you can also see that some parts did get a little bit too much heat from the heat tool, giving you that color difference. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just different. And now I have the white ones and two of them are semi-bondable, Magnetic Storm Gold and Blue Green. And now I will show you what you will get when you fuse a semi-bondable. And this is the difference. It's not as flat as the bondable ones. It looks sort of rippled, and when you pull on it, you can pull it apart. You can just pick it up and pull it apart. So even though it looks like you have a nice film, it's not fused together like the bondable ones. And here's the bondable and semi-bondable side by side. Bondable is completely flat, while the semi-bondable is a bit thicker, more loose and fluffy. So I pulled that apart and now I'm going to add a bit of a bondable one, because when you mix them up you can turn them into a pretty film, and the more you mix them up the more blended the colors will look, and when you pull less the colors will be mixed a bit, and this will give you another really pretty bonded fused film. So those were some of the basics. Now let's try out some techniques. I have 3 different colors and I pull on them to make them a bit longer, all the same size. And then I have a fork and I start rolling them up just like you would with spaghetti. Now in my head this technique worked perfectly, but it sort of rolls up way too close to the fork, so I ditch the fork and I start rolling it by hand, just moving it around that circle, making the circle a little bigger and more flat. And this way you can easily spread the Angelina and make those colors roll up side by side a little bit more. So I move that silver one around it and I tuck in all those loose ends. And by gently pulling and moving it around the previous colors, you can make a nice thin film, because you don't need a lot of Angelina to get a really pretty result. And I fuse them together and look at this super cool rolled up mixed color film. And of course I had to test Angelina with dies. So I have a film on my plate with some circle dies and I roll them through the machine just once and look at these really pretty circles. So, well, that was pretty simple. But will it work with a guillotine trimmer? So I've added a sheet in my trimmer and make sure to press on the plastic finger help. That will help you with the cutting. And I found it works best when your layer is a bit more filled. With the more open spaces it's a little bit harder to cut. But it does work. And now I have a nice circle frame panel. And then the next thing, how can you adhere Angelina on your cards or on your paper projects? So I've tried a few different things, and the ones I found work really well are tape and Collage Medium. So I start with the tape. I added that to the back of the frame in a few places, and then I add that on my card and I press it down. That's it. It doesn't show and it isn't sticky, which is really cool. So then the Collage Medium, I just apply a thin layer with a palette knife on my card. You can also use a brush or sponge, whatever works best for you. And I'm using the matte drying one. And then I just add the circle on top of that and I press it down. Then I trim off that half circle and then I put it aside to dry. And with the same Collage Medium, I'm going to try adding it on top of the Angelina, if that works. That works as well, but then it is sticky on the top, so that's a bit more messy to apply it this way. It also will take a bit longer to dry, and by the way I'm adding it at a weird angle because I'm going to turn this one into a card. And then I put those both aside to dry. I also tested the Dilutions glue stick and Nuvo adhesive, and they both work as well for adhering Angelina on paper. And I will have some links in the description box for you if you like to check those out. And now let's try something else. So I have my card base, I'm adding that on a piece of printing paper and I trace it with a pencil. So I have the size of my card on my printing paper. Then I'm going to lay out a bunch of different color circles that I've cut and make a nice composition. And this is always a fun part, just playing around and moving pieces over your card or the size that your card is on the paper to see what colors you want to use and to see what shapes you like best, or the stacked shapes or combinations of colors. This is always one of the coolest parts, seeing a piece come together. And once I think they are all in place, I'm going to run it through the laminator, and this is what you get, a really pretty fused circle film ready to add to your card. So I added a bit of tape to the back and I measured with my card to do that. Then I added with the tape side up on my desk and I add my card on top of it. And then I just trim off the bits that are sticking out. And this makes a really pretty, shimmery, shiny card. And I just popped on a sentiment on this one and the card is done. And in the meantime my other cards are dry. I've added some tape to the back and then I just fold those fibers that are hanging over the edge around the card to stick them to the back. And this is just another way to give those fibers a nice finish on the edge of a card. And then I add the complete panel on a white note card. And I finish the card with a simple silver sentiment. And remember that card with the frame that I cut? I added the card panel on a piece of black card and the complete piece on a white note card. And I've added some silver circles and a sentiment to finish this card. And then I have that card where I've added my circle at a totally weird angle. I'm going to trim that down. And when the Angelina is on a piece of card, it's even easier to cut it with a guillotine cutter. I've added that panel to a lighter color pink card and I finished with a sentiment and some silver dots. I hope I've given you loads of information about Angelina and how to use it on your paper crafting projects. Now let me know if you would like more ideas to use it in the comments below. And if you like the video, just share it with your 5,000 best Facebook friends or on Instagram or anywhere else you like to hang out. And as always, make sure to keep on crafting. And here she is, the colorful, sparkling Angelina. And though she is mostly used. Hi. Hi.